All right, so we're on January now of 1956, and we had talked about uh, the river, where the river was freezing up by Binlock,
Right,
and you guys had gone down there to help out.
right.
And now, tell us about that particular winter, 55. Winter of 55, 56.
It was cold. I haven't looked it up. I should actually take the time to look it up. It was bitter cold. Um, it probably compared to when the Germans went into Russia and they all froze to death. I mean, it
Right,
was actually bitter cold, below zero temperatures, both Celsius and
right,
Fahrenheit. Um, and I don't recall. I mean, I think highs would be 1
right.
or 0
During
and
the day.
during the day, and so part of the part of the drill was we didn't change our routine. I mean, we had thermal boots and winter equipment and parkers and all the stuff you needed to stay warm.
Right.
But your face was exposed, and we partnered. And our partnership was um, you had to look at your buddy to make sure that he didn't have frostbite. So one of the things that we would do in
Right.
that era, because we did motor pool, we did everything.
Right.
And I said and earlier when we talked, there's a small town, I don't remember the name of the town. They asked for help. The river was freezing. A bunch of us volunteered to go down there. We would tie ropes around us. One of us would go out in the ice with a pick and pick at the other one. 2 or 3 guys would hold on to the rope in case we were lucky enough to crack the ice and fall in.
Anybody crack it, go in?
No, we broke the ice up a little
Yeah.
bit, but it was really thick. I mean, it was cold. And our battalion commander came down, and he had some other guys he was working with, non-commissioned officers. He said, "Everybody get off the river. We're gonna put in charges, dynamite charges, and see if we can blow this thing up and open it up so the water flows down the river and doesn't back up into the town." And so it took them an hour or so to get everything charged there, and then we all got out of the way, and they blew up the charges, and it opened the river.
And you mentioned the 2-man rule.
Right. That was you had to make sure that you didn't. If you're working on the vehicle, you check your buddy every once in a while, look at him, and frostbite would appear as small gray portions of your face would start to turn gray. And if you saw that, then you guys would have to stop doing what you're doing and go get an indoor. We were down at the motor pool, but we did have garages. So
Right.
if we had got somebody in that condition, we'd go into the garage that had a little bit of heat and stay there till the.
So last time when you after you got out of basic and you went to the specialized training, to
Right,
advanced training,
right.
you were mortar gunner on a mortar.
I'm a gunner on a mortar.
But you also mentioned when we talked about driver of a half track.
Okay,
So relate those two.
so we get to Binlock. The scout guys get their jeeps. The tank guys get their tanks, the same tanks that they trained on.
Right.
The infantry guys get their APC, which is the same APC type that we had. We
Right.
did the mortar guys. We carried our stuff or put it in a jeep or a 3/4 ton truck.
Right.
When we got to Germany, we had a half track, and the half track had a base plate mounted in it.
Right.
And the half track was open. The backside of the half track was open, so you could fire a mortar off the half track. My job as the gunner was also the driver of the half track.
All right. So that's when you started driving.
That's when I started driving the half track. Part of our
Right.
training was this is an armored unit. Part of our training that we learned when we took advanced training was to drive in the dark. And you had blackout lights on these vehicles. You could see them. You could see them maybe for 50 yards. There'd be a real slight red light in the back
Uh-huh.
and very slight light in the front, so people could see you.
Right.
And when you went in a convoy, you learned how to drive in a convoy with no lights on your vehicle. And so we drove all the time as part of our training.
Right.
And that's what I said. Even though I wasn't a tanker or wasn't an infantry guy, we all got our turn at driving the tank and driving the APC. And we all drove Jeeps, so that wasn't an issue.
Right. So now, in February, I think you told me you went on maneuvers.
February, we went, I believe it was Grafenwehr. There's 2 training sites in Germany, and I
Right.
think there's still training sites in Germany.
Right.
Hornfeld and Grafenwehr. And they had been small towns prior to the war, and they had a lot of, I think they were training areas for the German army. So a lot of stuff got blown up there, and I don't think they ever went back to a lot of the remote places because that all became part of the training area.
Right.
So you had bombed out buildings and things, not a lot, but a few of them on each of these training sites. Probably gone today, but in 1955, 56, they were still there. And so we go out in our company, we went out and we do maneuvers. We do, the scout guys go out, the infantry guys go out, we set up the mortars and sight the mortars, and we didn't do live firing, but because you had to go to the range to do live
Right.
firing. But we
Did everything else.
We did everything else. We set up everything else. And then bitter cold. And our platoon sergeant, my platoon sergeant name was DeLeon, was his last name. Wow. He was a master sergeant, E7 at that time, 1955, 56. I was as high as you could go as an enlisted guy. He'd been in World War II in Korea. He was a good soldier. And he was a leader. He knew how to handle men and motivate them and get them to do stuff. And he said, well, guys, we don't need to train to be miserable. That comes naturally. So he found one of these destroyed buildings.
Right.
And we went in it at night and we built fires to stay warm. So we spent 2 nights, and we go out and maneuver all day and the night. Normally you would sleep on the ground. You would take your
Right.
sleeping bag out, throw your poncho on the ground, and just lay down and go to sleep wherever you were.
But you had mentioned to me that you had an M1, but that changed at some point.
Well, when we go to the range, we go to the range, and we fired all the weapons that were in our organization: 30 caliber machine gun, 50 caliber machine gun, 3.5 rocket launchers, 76 millimeter guns, grease guns, 45 carbines, M1s. We fired all the weapons. You had to be trained because you lose your vehicle. Now you may be an infantry guy, or you may be a tanker,
right?
Because your stuff got blown up. So you're going to continue to do whatever the job that needs to be done is. And so you may have to take a different role. And so they try to cross train us all in everything.
Right.
So everybody got a little bit of this and a little bit of that. We all got to fire everything because
right.
you go to the range and there are all the weapons out there, you get to fire. So when I went to drive a grease gun, when I went to drive the half track, I got a grease gun. And a grease gun is just it's a piece of metal,
right?
Really. It shoots 45 caliber rounds,
right?
And it has about a 30 round magazine. And it's automatic. So when you shoot it, it'll walk away from you if you're not careful and don't hold it, like you're trained to do burst fire and that type of thing.
So you traded in the M1 for the grease gun.
I traded in the M1 for a grease gun.
All right. So how long were you on these maneuvers that were?
Well, it's 3 days.
3 days. Okay.
So you did 3 days. Then we went back in the barracks. Of course, first thing you do is you clean up everything.
Right.
You gas up everything. Everything's always full. Like I said, we have a basic load of ammo and food. We weren't allowed to eat the food.
Right.
When we were out in maneuvers, if we weren't around the mess hall, you didn't get to eat. Tough luck.
Right.
Unless you could find some German bakery or something where you go and buy bread.
Right.
But, you couldn't touch MC rations. Anyway, we go back and we're clean up our stuff. And the next day we're going to go to the range.
Right.
So I'm thinking, man, we're going to freeze our butts because you lay on the ground and, shoot bullets and it's cold. And it's still bitter cold. And they come in and say, well, this is where I learned never to volunteer. we need a volunteer to drive a platoon leader. And I'm thinking, the platoon leader's Jeep is covered. It's not heated, but it's going to be a hell of a lot warmer than being out in this wind. I'll do it. Well, we're in Company C. We had done our maneuver, our 3-day maneuver. I was driving a platoon leader in Company B who was going on their 3-day maneuvers. So I went back to freeze my butt off
3 more days?
3 more days, but I didn't have Sergeant DeLeon to make sure we were halfway comfortable at night. Laid on the ground and froze my off
For 3 more days.
for 3 more days. So we get finished, we go back, and I think this time, I think it's
You're around March now.
February, March, we go back to the border. Our company, Charlie Company goes back to the border. And
Right.
again, different platoons went to different places.
When you go back to the border, meaning patrolling the East German border.
Right. You're either in an outpost or on patrol,
Right.
depending on where you need it. Small, maybe.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. And so we go to the border again. And at that time, the weather was okay. It wasn't bad, and it was again normal for us.
Right.
It was we did what we do our 30 days, and we go back to Binlock and start training again.
Right.
Now we're probably in March, at some time in this period.
Right.
Then I discover you're not real hot shot because they needed to send somebody to be a prison guard.
Right.
I think they called them prison chasers in that day. And I was selected. So I went to Nuremberg.
This is April and May of 56.
Yeah. And so it's called temporary duty, TDY.
Right.
So I go TDY to Nuremberg. I think there was the TDY was 2 months. And basically what you do is you march guys that are in the stockade. Nobody was a hardened criminal. They missed a formation, went AWOL,
Right.
violated Uniform Code of Military Justice in a minor way.
Right.
And they got sent to the stockade for 30 days. So you take them to the mess hall, and they had different organizations would ask for people to come do details and stuff, work on stuff. And these guys go out and clean up stuff and work on. You go with, make sure they didn't run away.
So you marched around.
Were
they in chains?
No, they were walking. I mean, no.
Did you get to shoot someone?
No, I didn't get to shoot anybody.
That seems like the punishments back then for misinformation were a lot harsher than the punishments are today for some serious things.
Yeah, if you violated Uniform Code of Military Justice in the 3rd Cav, you were going to be punished.
I mean, 30 days, that's a long time.
And the bad news is about the stockade. If you enlist for 3 years.
Right.
If you go to the stockade for 30 days, those 30 days are bad time. They don't count against your enlistment. So you just extended your enlistment by 30 days. If you were drafted and go for 30 days, you extended your draft period by 30 days.
So any time you spent in the stockade didn't count.
Bad time.
Bad time. All right. So it gets us to June.
Right.
All right. So tell us about.
Well, again, you're back in. Go back to the unit. I don't recall exactly when we got back. I don't know if I got back in time to go on our rotation to the border or not. But again, it's if you're not on the border, you're training.
All right. So during this time you mentioned something about the half track catching fire.
Well, again, we're in Hornsfeld or Grafenwehr,
Right.
doing maneuvers, training. The half track broke down. Well, when you're the driver, you stay with the vehicle.
Right.
And so I stayed with the vehicle.
So what's on the vehicle?
Like I said, it's a basic load. There's mortars. I don't recall how many rounds of mortar we had. We had sufficient to fight for a while. And you have 50 caliber ammo for our crew weapon. And our ammunition we brought ourselves, but it wasn't on the vehicle. but the mortar rounds were the big deal because they're
Right.
little bombs.
But the half track's full of ammunition.
Half tracks full of them. You got compartments. Again, half tracks, metal, steel, like a tank.
Right.
Probably today's rounds would go through it, but back in those days, it had some protection to you. Like I say, it weighed 13 tons. So vehicle breaks down, get a tow vehicle out there, and I should have disconnected the battery. I didn't disconnect the battery. They start towing the vehicle, catches on fire. So, wave everybody down. The vehicle's burning. I say start going, but go slow because I got to take all this ammunition out. So some of the guys that were around there, other guys, just helped me unload the vehicle. So as they tow it, you could see ammunition laying on both sides of the track as we pulled it forward. We got the fire out and was figured out that we needed to disconnect the battery and do X, Y, and Z, and then had to go back and pick up all the ammunition and put it back into where
that would have been a show if that stuff started going off.
Yeah, would have been a bad show.
All right, so So July, August, back to the border.
Yeah, again, if you're not on the border, you're doing maneuvers. You're in Hornsfeld at one of the ranges, firing, your weapons, your crew weapons, and that kind of stuff. And that's just for us. It would think every 3 months, 4 months we're on the border, and the rest of the time we're training.
So, how are you armed? Are you armed when you're on the border?
Yeah, I have my grease gun.
Right.
We have a 50 caliber machine gun in the bunker, and other guys have their weapons, M1s or carbines.
Where are you sleeping?
On the ground in the bunker or outside the bunker. One of the things, Jim, you did every day was you did PT. I mean, every day you had physical training.
Even when you're up there guarding the border?
On the border, you didn't do PT. When you're in garrison, you did PT every day. Okay, you run a mile or not run double time.
Right.
And I think almost every Friday we had a parade.
A parade?
A parade. We go out in the parade field and march.
So September, October, November of '56, what's happening there?
Well, again, it's pretty routine. We get towards the end of the year. And again, you figure out you're not so as important as you would like to believe. But I get selected to get transferred to a trucking company in Augsburg, Germany.
Right.
And so there's a hanger on there, take it off, close the door.
Talk about those maneuvers first. Tell the story about the tanks and the maneuvers.
Oh, so of course, one part of the training was you'd have wars, and some units would be the Blue Army, some units would be the Red Army, and you're practicing tactics that you would use in combat.
Right.
And one of the things the scouts do, they go out and they'd see the enemy, and the enemy would engage the scouts, but just a little bit, just make them stop and disperse, and then they would pull back. And
so you're in war games at this time, August or September, October, November.
Right.
Okay.
We're out there, and so you're doing the tactics that you would be doing, and as a mortar guy, I'm just bringing up the rear until we're going to set up and start shooting at people.
Right.
And they kept doing this. The other army kept shooting at us. We spread out, and then they would take off. And we had a second lieutenant was a platoon leader. I'm pretty sure he's a West Point graduate. I'm not 100% sure. Haskell, something like that was his name. said tanks up, which is a tactic you use. We're going to put our big guns up there and take you guys out and stop messing around with you. And Sergeant DeLeon said, no tanks up. There's a company of big tanks up there waiting for us. And the lieutenant, of course, overrode him. He was smarter than the platoon sergeant. And I don't think it was a mile and a half, and there's a tank company up there, and the referees say most of us are dead, and I got taken prisoner, but most of the guys were dead because I think there was 5 M48 tanks sitting there just blowing the heck out of us. It could have had we.
So when you got taken prisoner, did anything? I mean, did you go to a stockade or something?
No, they take you over the side and try to get you to answer questions, and you already know the routine.
Right. They waterboard you?
No, they make you lean up against the wall and put your fingers up and do stupid stuff, but nothing's going to happen to you. So screw you, dude.
All right, December.
So
end of 56.
So I get notified that I'm being transferred to a trucking company in Augsburg, Germany. And my new job is to drive a 2.5-ton truck. So
now that's something that happened every year, it seems like, for 22 years, that you never stayed any place more than a year.
I didn't spend a lot of time any place. We moved a lot. I think, Mom and I counted, I think we moved 28 times. And sometimes it was moving from temporary quarters to permanent housing, but nonetheless, it's a move.
Right.
So I get another guy with me, John Sweeney,
right,
was transferred with me. John Sweeney was drafted. So he's a little bit older. And I think he's a businessman, smart guy.
Right.
And we got to Augsburg, and neither one of us liked it. So he wrote a compassionate letter to get us back to the 3rd Cav, which was promptly turned down, and we stayed where we were.
So you were in Binlock from August of 55 to December of 56.
Right.
And in 56, you became a truck driver for 2.5-ton.
2.5-ton trucks. So the mission was to support the 11th Airborne Division, which was in Augsburg. And, the job was they, like every unit in Germany, would have different days of training. Sometimes
right,
you'd take them to an airport where they load up on airplanes, and then you'd meet them at the drop zone because they would jump.
Right.
Sometimes they went out to Hoornsveld and Grafenweer,
right,
and did maneuvers, and you back to Hoornsveld and Grafenweer.
Right.
So they had a lot of different requirements, and our job was you got assigned the day, you get assigned to Company A, Company B of a certain battle group or whatever. You just go pick up the guys where you're assigned to go and go where you're told to go.
Right.
We still had alerts. Every month you had a real alert where they would blow the alert whistle. This was across all of Europe, and you would go out to where you were supposed to go to do whatever you're going to do. With the 11th Airborne, we went to Fürstenfeldbruck airfield, which was not too far from Dachau in Munich. So from Augsburg, you drive up there, you pick up your guys and drive up there, and they'd set up, nothing would happen, and we'd spend a couple hours there, and then everything would load up and go back.
So as the driver of the truck, when you're not driving it, what are you doing?
Sitting around waiting for them to do whatever they're doing.
Maintenance or anything like that?
Well, I maintenance it every day. I didn't need to go out and maintenance again, because when you bring.
But that was part of your duties, is you would.
You return from your dispatch for the day. You fill it up with gas, you wash it, you check the oil, you check this, you check that. And on a periodic basis, you didn't go anywhere. You took your truck to the motor pool, you changed the oil, you greased it, you did all of the maintenance that you need to do on a truck.
But you did all that.
You did it yourself.
That.
Right. If you had a problem with the truck, a mechanical problem,
right,
they had mechanics. But you went with your truck and you'd work with the mechanic to fix whatever it was you were fixing.
Okay. So next time we'll pick up in Augsburg in 57.
Augsburg 57.